Hello everyone, my name is Kamil Erdayandi. Thank you very much for coming to listen. I'm a PhD student at the University of Manchester, and I'm working with Dr. Mustafa. Today I'm going to talk about privacy preserving energy trading markets based on game theory approaches. First of all, let me start with the motivation. At the start of the symposium, Professor Crete mentioned that global warming has already started, and we can see the effects of global warming, such as there's been water floods and other circumstances. Because of that, we all know that we should use more green energy sources, and most of the people are aware of this. However, green energy sources, which uses renewable energy sources such as wind power and solar panels, are not prevalent, although we have motivation to use it. There are several aspects why they are not prevalent. First of all, let's think about a scenario which is given in the figure. As you can see, there are some households which has solar panels and wind power systems. And there is also a generator which uses fossils to generate electricity. In this scenario, wind power and power panels output always fluctuate. And the main electricity generators which use fossils always gives stable output. So households can always rely on generators because they can always obtain electricity in a stable way. Because of this, since main electricity generators can provide stable outputs, these generators can leverage better prices, and as a result of this, the households which generate electricity using wind power energy systems and solar panels inject the excess electricity to the grid with no remuneration or very few profit. Because of this, the households which uses renewable energy sources are not incentivized because since they cannot get revenue because of this. As it was discussed in the previous presentations, business model is important. Even though we are motivated to use renewable energy sources, and if they cannot get profit by using these renewable energy systems, it's not always feasible and sustainable to use these renewable energy systems. Fortunately, recently, smart grid technology has been introduced. By smart grid technology, not only energy is transferred between generator and households, but also the households can communicate with each other. And with the communication, they can make a trade with each other, such as they can send bids and offer to other people. And with the trading mechanisms established by using smart grids, households can increase their revenues, and buyers can reduce their costs. Not only is it beneficial for the households, but also it's very beneficial for the main generators as well. Because by using the trading mechanisms, peak demands can be curtailed, and investment on the main structures done by the generators can be reduced. So these trading mechanisms is beneficial for all parties. And to achieve the trading mechanisms, there are two main pricing mechanisms. The first one is game theory, and the second one is auction theory. In fact, game theory is the modeling of interaction between two or more players. The most important thing in game theory is that decision of action taken by one player is dependent on and affects other actions of other players. Because of this, there is always iteration. So once a party proposes a strategy, the others propose another strategy, and the iteration continues until they reach to an agreement, which can be called equilibrium point. In this case, in the equilibrium point, they cannot improve their utilities or profit anymore. In game theoretical approach, there are some specific methods which are Stackelberg game and Nash game. In Stackelberg game, they propose and do bits respectively. First of all, the leader propose their strategies, and the followers react back to the leader's strategies. And they continue to propose their strategies until they reach to an equilibrium and find an equilibrium point. However, in the Dash game, they don't necessarily wait each other, and they can propose their strategies at the same time, and they don't have to wait each other. And the game theory can be divided into two categories as well, cooperative and non-cooperative. In cooperative games, as its name refers, they are cooperative. They cooperate to leverage better utilities. In non-cooperative game, they don't need to cooperate with each other. They are independent and they can compete with each other. Stackelberg, Dash game, and these cooperative and non-cooperative games are inclusive, which means that if the game is a Stackelberg game, they can be both cooperative and non-cooperative game, and it's the same for the Dash game as well. I want to talk about auction theory so much because we all know what auction is a lot. It's the process of buying and selling products. The product is sold to the bidder, which gives the highest speed, and it's bought from seller, which has the lowest bidder. And it can be double auction, forward auction, and open bid and sealed bid auctions. So by using these trading mechanisms, we can achieve our target, which is mentioned in the previous slide. We can do trading and we can incentivize the usage of renewable energy systems. And in the literature, there are numerous papers which utilizes these techniques. However, there is one issue that hasn't been tackled thoroughly, which is privacy. You can see on the figure the electrical load profile of a user. According to the load profile of the user, we can estimate what the people are doing inside the household. For example, if the output of the household is like this, it's running stove, and if it's like this, it's running kettle. And even in the worst case, people can understand whether the person is inside or outside, so they can make a plan to intrude to the house. And in the trading, the information used for bidding is highly correlated with the load profile. So by using the information from bidding, they can estimate the activities of people inside the building. Although this information can be sensitive information, we have some privacy enhancing technologies which can tackle this issue. One of the most common used technique is anonymization, in which case data is obfuscated or data is switched with other data. Another one is secure multi-party computation. In this, the data is split into chunks, and each chunk sent to the different users. And computation is done collaboratively. In this case, the users that do the computations doesn't know the exact information, but they only know the part of the information. So they can make the computations in a privacy-preserving way without actually knowing the exact data. There is also another method which is called differential privacy, in which a randomness added to the data, but at the same time it allows to make a process within a certain scope, and we can do calculations although there is noise on the data. There is another method called homomorphic encryption. In practice, in general, when we want to make a computation in cloud, we always rely on, not always, most of the time, rely on third parties. In this case, we encrypt the data and send the data in an encrypted format to the cloud. And when it reaches the cloud, data is encrypted and it is processed on the plain text. And it's encrypted and sent to the user again. But in this case, the cloud which processes the data can always have access to plain text. So they can always leak our sensitive information. Since we cannot always rely on trusted third parties, fortunately, there's another privacy-enhancing technologies which can handle this issue. In homomorphic encryption, data is encrypted, and computation it is sent to the cloud, and computation is done on the encrypted data, which means that cloud can make a process the data without revealing the actual data. They make the process on encrypted data, so they cannot have access our actual data. One of the benefits of it is that we can still have the same operation, and we can have this result when the operation result is decrypted. And we can get the same result, but without leaking the actual information. There are two homomorphic encryption schemes. One of them is partial and other one is full homomorphic encryption. In partial homomorphic encryption, process is limited, like it doesn't allow all operations. It either allows scalar multiplication, or addition, or multiplication, depending on the scheme. In full homomorphic encryption, it allows most of the operations. At the same time, it is computationally intensive. This one. In the literature, there are some papers which uses privacy-enhancing technologies to do trading in smart grids. Some of them are well designed, some of them are very good papers. Most of them are based on double auction and auction theory. Some of them use anonymization, some of them use MPC, some of them use homomorphic encryption. At the same time, some of them has some drawbacks, like they don't base on multi-agent systems, and they are prone to a single product of failure, and some of them are not scalable. And one of them does not provide performance evaluation. Among them, there is only one paper which is based on game theory and Stackelberg game. One of the drawbacks of this paper is that it's not competitive. The price is calculated by the buyers, and it's a fixed price. In real life scenario, it's not a realistic scenario, because most of the time when we make a trade, people compete and try to bargain and reach an agreement. And most of the time the price is not determined by the buyers. To mitigate this issue, we have proposed a competitive privacy-preserving energy trading, which is based on game theoretical approach, which is published in IEEE PSGM. I won't go so much into detail, but I can say that the system is initialized by the seller. First of all, they propose prices, and according to the prices, the buyers calculate their strategies, and according to the price, they calculate demands on the sellers. Like, for example, if the price is low, they propose high demands on specific seller. And according to the demands proposed by the buyers, sellers propose another price. And the system iterates until the system reaches to an equilibrium in which sellers and buyers cannot improve their utilities anymore. So they have an agreement at this point. For example, we can better understand from this graphs. It is the maximum amount of energy that sellers can supply. So we can see the initial prices here of buyers. According to initial price of sellers, the buyers propose some demands, and each iteration, the price and demand is updated, and the price reached to an equilibrium, also demands reached to an equilibrium. So at this point, all the parties have an agreement. And we have also proved the correctness of equilibrium theoretically, so we can refer to the paper. In the end, demands match the supply, and the system reached an equilibrium. Also, when we consider that there is a retail price and feed-in tariff price, we can say that the system reached an equilibrium where the price is lower than the retail price and higher than the feed-in price. So, according to the price and demands, we can say that the system is incentive for all parties. So it can incentivize to use the system and encourage the usage of green energy sources. To provide privacy, there are 4 options which we can deploy. One of them is anonymization, other one is MPCN, differential privacy, and homomorphic encryption. According to some research, if we use anonymization techniques, the anonymized data can be reverted back by using some techniques. So it cannot always provide full privacy. MPC is also a good technology which we can deploy. However, the trading platform which we employ is highly iterative, which means that it's very computationally intensive. Communicative. It has high communication. It has already high communication, as we know that MPC has a high communication as well. If you add a communication intensive technology to platform which has already communication intensive, it will be highly, very highly computationally or communicatively intensive. So we didn't consider using MPC to lower the communication intensity. We could also use the differential privacy. However, in this case, some noise is added to the data. It's to some level. In our system, the price must be accurate, so we should always have some accurate results. We cannot add noise. Even the decimals are important. So we then consider using differential noisy to get full accuracy. Homomorphic encryption provides full accuracy if it is designed thoroughly. There might be some error budgets in form of homomorphic encryption, but if it is designed thoroughly, we can always get full accuracy. Also, the communication intensity is not high compared to MPC. So we decided to use homomorphic encryption. One of the drawbacks of the homomorphic encryption is that it is computationally intensive. However, as you can see from the results, it is still acceptable. So time's up, I think. The performance is not the performance is acceptable. However, it's limited, which can be improved more. So we propose another technique which allows partial homomorphic encryption, which is less computationally intensive. Also, we use special square operation. In this case, performance is optimized. Compared to previous work, the performance is almost doubled, like process time is significantly reduced. Also, we can see the prices doesn't diverge so much compared to the previous one. So utilities of the users is almost preserved. So as a future work, since we have improved the performance of the system, we have budgets to use more performance. We can use multi-key arrangement to provide higher privacy level, which is also computationally intensive. Also, we can use cooperation and coalition techniques to leverage better utilities for prosumers. In the end, we plan to deploy privacy preserving billing protocols for settlements. That's all I want to talk about. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you.